Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Dawn Westmoreland, your talk host of the syndicated radio show, The Empowered Whistleblower, where we blow the whistle on strategies that empower other people, whether it's in the workplace or it's in our personal lives. I bring on the best guests. My show airs Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time Zone, but because it's syndicated with Pacifica Network, it could be aired any day at any time. I'm coming from Asheville, North Carolina, the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, coming from WPVM FMLP 103.7, the voice of Asheville. I am so delighted to talk about this subject, money, 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 money. Every day, don't we all wake up thinking about money? Well, how do you manage your money so your money doesn't manage you? I have guest expert. He is a money manager, a money guru, Chad Hufford, coming from Anchorage, Alaska. Hello, Chad. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone.
Don, hey, it's great to see you, and thank you so much for the privilege of being on your show and helping empower your audience to plan a better future with their money.
I love it. And money has always been something of interest to many of us. And today in 2025, everybody's concerned. We have a new administration, whether you're for them or against them, there's always change with administrations. We watch the stock market change. I think people are a little bit nervous about money, Chad. What do you think?
I think number one, there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty in this time that we're in, but I think it's normal. I mean, if you look back at history, like when is a time where there's more certainty? It certainly wasn't in 2022 when everybody's worried about recessions. It wasn't during 2020 when in the midst of COVID. Like we've never had a lot of certainty, but right now I just think the focus is very much on it because there is so much new right now. But the other side of it too is for a lot of us, money can be a source of pain. Money can be a source of frustration. Even if people have it, it can be they might be just worried about losing it. I think a lot of folks growing up, the only time money was talked about is when it was in a negative context, when somebody lost a job, when there wasn't enough money, when maybe somebody spent too much money and mom and dad are fighting about it. We often didn't grow up where money was looked at as a neutral or even a positive thing. But that's how I see money and investing as a tool to build a better life. That's all it is a tool. But if we don't utilize that tool properly, it can actually be destructive in our life.
I know times have changed. I'm in my early 60s, about to hit 61 here this month. And, you know, there was a lot of sacrifice growing up from our parents, for my parents and such. And, but my parents also encouraged us to get work and not expect everything. Today, people want instant gratification. Do you think it's worse than ever? When I say instant gratification, let me go out and buy this car, let me go buy this tech, let me go buy this big super mama house, Has it changed really?
I think it has. So I referenced on another show recently a study that had been done by Gallup poll where they were interviewing, basically an exit interview, kids coming out of college. And so these kids are, 21, 22, 23 years old. And the average age or the average timeline that they expected to get to their parent station in life, to have their parents' financial status was about 5 years.
Yeah.
So these kids were expecting to get in 5 years where it took their parents 25 years
Mhm.
to get. So I think that's one issue. But the other part of that, it just goes back to human nature, where we treat the future version of ourselves almost as if that person's a stranger. We we make decisions today and ignore the consequence or push off those consequences as if somebody else is going to have to pay them. Where it's the future me, it's the future Don, it's the future Chad that has to either benefit or suffer from those consequences. But we buy things with money we don't have to purchase things we don't need to impress people we don't even like. And then it's like future me is going to have to pay for that. And that's not my problem. That's future Chad's problem. But that mindset very much fuels that instant gratification. It's like I'm going to do this, and it doesn't have to even be in finances. It can be in how we treat our bodies. Or I'm gonna
Mhm.
eat this half a pizza, and tomorrow me can work out and try to burn this off, but I'm just gonna enjoy the moment. So I think instant gratification gets people into a lot of trouble.
Yeah. I'm a life coach and we always talk about, to control your life, you master your emotions. You talk about mastering your money. Why is mastering your money so very important these days? I guess it's important anytime.
Well, for several reasons. Number one, money is a part of your life, whether you like it or not. And some people can look at investing, look at budgeting, look at financial planning and say, that's just too intimidating. It's too frustrating. I don't want to do it. But money is a part of your life, whether you like it or not. And just like your physical health, the only thing necessary for your financial health to deteriorate is to ignore it, is
Mm,
negligence.
mm,
So your physical health doesn't get better by ignoring it. Your financial health won't get better easier. So whether you want money to be a part of your life, whether you want investing, it is. So we don't get to choose whether we're a steward of our money or not. We only get to choose whether we are a good steward. So that is one issue. Money is a part of our daily life. And the other aspect is because that is the case, money is only a tool, though. It's only as good as your behavior, your utilization with that tool. So we need to make sure, as you said at the opening of the show, that we need to be managing our money, or else it will control us.
yeah.
Money is a fantastic servant. It is a terrible master.
Yes. Now I imagine there are a lot of people out there listening in that have, a little bit of debt, or maybe they have a lot. I don't know. And that can be so intimidating and it feels just like, you have chains all around you. I think, we get this paralyzed feeling because I've been there before too, through no fault of my own, but life has happened. What's one of the first things people can do when they're in debt and they're just like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. I just want to throw up my hands and give up.
Well, sometimes people need to sell something. I mean, I run into people that drive vehicles that are way too expensive for them. Now, but you talk about things that maybe it wasn't your fault. Maybe it was a health issue, and you have medical debt.
Yeah.
Um, Student loans is a big problem in our country right now. You can't sell back your degree. So the first thing to do though is you have to stop the bleeding. So some people, like you said, they throw up their hands. They're like, okay, well, I'm buried in debt, and they keep on borrowing. You cannot borrow your way out of debt. You can't consolidate all your credit cards and move your debt. I have 6 kids, Don, and sometimes when I'm asking them to clean their room, they don't actually clean it. They just move the mess. They just move the mess from the middle of their floor to the closet or to under their bed. That's not cleaning it. It's just rearranging the clutter. And a lot of people try to do that with debt. They try to rearrange the clutter, that rearrange the mess in their life, and it doesn't work. So it ultimately has to start within ourselves. We have to make a decision to begin living within our means, which is so simple, but it's not easy. Almost nobody does it. And to create a plan to start chipping away at this debt. So somebody might be $100,000 in debt, and it seems like it's insurmountable. Like
Yeah.
how do you eat an elephant? Well, you do it one bite at a time. So you have to find the what I recommend is the smallest debt and start chipping away at that first. So if you have 6 or 7 different debts, it can be overwhelming, it can be intimidating, it can be frustrating. Start with the smallest debt. Doesn't matter what the interest rate is, but you need a win. You need a victory. Dave Ramsey calls this the snowball system, where you pay off the smallest debt first, so you get that quick win. Then you can roll that payment into your next debt, and then you put all your energy into the next smallest debt. And people will argue with me all the time that, well, you should start with your highest interest rates and do this and do that, and they make it much more complex.
Mhm.
People need simple and they need effective. Getting into debt is not a math issue, it's a behavioral issue. So we can't use mathematics to get out of debt. We have to talk to the soul, talk to the individual, and create a behavioral strategy that helps them get out of debt and bring their psychology into it. And the psychology of small wins is very, very important. So start with the smallest debt, chip away at that, put all your energy and emphasis into that, and then move on to the next biggest debt.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, even me included, we thought always pay the highest interest rate off, get out of debt that way faster. But yeah, wins are very, very, very important. Should we start like an emergency fund, like if the tires blow out or, the pet gets really sick or something like that?
Well, we work very closely with Dave Ramsey. So if people are familiar with him, they understand that one of the first things you do is have $1,000 emergency fund. We call it
Yes.
the baby emergency fund. And what that does is just keeps life off your back just for a moment. So maybe some smaller things like, a vet visit for your cat or something like that, or maybe a minor car repair. But you and I both know $1,000 doesn't go very far with a major issue. So what we eventually want people to get to is 3 to 6 months of living expenses in cash, sitting in an account that they don't typically use. You almost want to forget about it until you need it. But before you build your emergency fund, you got to get rid of all your debt. Because if you have debt right now, you're basically living in the emergency right now.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, but if I don't have that money and something goes out of my car, I have to put that on my credit card. Well, you're already drowning in credit card debt. So let's not try to pay down, or sorry, let's not put money in a bank account that you're getting 2% while your credit card is bleeding you at 20%. You've got to pay down the debt first. And that uncomfortability of only having $1,000 in your bank will actually push you to pay down those debts faster. But you don't want to build an emergency fund while you are paying down debt.
Okay. I wondered if it was the other way around, what you would suggest. Yeah. I love the backstories of people. Chad, how did you get into this? Were you a young man at one time and you were just fascinated with math and numbers? I mean, how did you get into wanting to help people with finances?
Well, it's interesting you asked that, Don. I actually have a degree in biochemistry. My um my plan was to go into medicine, and I was well along that path. And I met the woman who's now my wife, the mother of my 6 kids, and my perspectives changed. And I wanted to build a practice that I owned, and not have a job that owned me.
Mhm.
So I started second guessing or thinking like maybe medicine isn't going to be the right choice for me.
Yeah.
Not that you can't have balance in life as a physician, but I just know how I'm wired, and I'm kind of an all or nothing guy. So anyway, I grew up though in a house where we did talk about money and it normalized it. It was a normal part of our dinner conversation. My parents just made it something that we discussed, not when it was stressful, but just as a point of conversation. They wanted to teach us lessons. And I saw my dad, he he used to teach classes in our community, in our church. Long before Dave Ramsey, there was a man named Larry Burkett who had a system called Crown Financial. And it was just about being a better steward of your money. And he used to teach that. And one of the things I saw, Don, was because money is such an important part of people's life, when they were stressed out, when they had anxiety and frustrations around finances, that had a ripple effect into every area of their life. The human brain does not compartmentalize stress. When I'm stressed about how am I going to pay my bills, or I'm worried about the economy, or I'm worried about retirement, and I'm wondering if I'm on track, that stress affects my relationships, it affects my physical health, it affects so many other things. But what I saw, Don, is the flip side is also true. When people start experiencing clarity and confidence in their finances, when they start producing discipline in their finances, when they're being more intentional with their planning and their investing, that intentionality, that discipline, that perseverance also has a ripple effect into every area of their life. And I watched that growing up, and I saw people's lives transform as they learned how to better manage their finances. And I thought, what a way to impact people. So I thought my ability to heal somebody was going to be through medicine. And what I've learned is that I could heal them through finances. And like we talked about before we started recording, it's coaching. It's like personal training for money. It's not managing. I mean, yes, we manage investments, but it's really coaching the individual so they behave better with money. And we've seen life transformation. And it's been a beautiful thing to help people use money to build more freedom and abundance into their life.
Yeah. I'm just curious your thoughts with the stock market, with all the changes going on. We have a new administration. Um, is that something you'd like to talk about? People who are trying to get ahead with the stock market?
Well, we try not to talk about the stock market because that sounds ephemeral. It sounds it's not very tangible. We
Okay.
try to remind people when you're investing through mutual funds, yeah, it's going to go up and down with the stock market, sure, but you're not buying the stock market. You're buying some of the best companies of the world. So the stock market is where some of the best companies of the world are traded. But we want to remind people they're owning companies. And the stock market is like a writhing, hissing bag of snakes. A it, it it is as temperamental as a hormonal teenager. But the stock market is where those companies are traded. Just like you don't go buy Costco, you shop at Costco. The stock market is where you buy the best companies in the world. So don't worry about the craziness and chaos of the stock market. Yes, when the S&P 500 goes up and down, your mutual funds are probably going to follow to some degree. But I want to get people past looking at this stock market idea and really think about I am buying real companies, brick and mortar companies
Mhm.
all over the world. And I don't really care. This is going to sound a little funny coming from a wealth manager, but I don't really care how much your companies are worth at any given moment. My concern for somebody is how much income they can produce over a lifetime. So it's looking past the chaos of the moment because I don't, even if somebody is retiring this year, this is still a long-term investment. It isn't how much are all my investments worth today that matters. It's how much income they can produce over my lifetime. So even if somebody's retiring tomorrow listening to this, they're probably focused on how much are all their investments worth today, not the income that it can produce. So that's one thing. The other thing is we can't control politics. Yeah, we can vote, and people absolutely should. But political tides and interest rates and who's in the White House and inflation and wars in Ukraine and the Middle East, like all that stuff is important, but we can't control any of it. And what we try to get people to do is really focus on the elements of their financial plan that they can control. Make sure that they're setting long-term goals and investing based on those long-term goals, not based on the craziness and chaos around them. We want people to act on a plan, not react to their environment. Am I explaining that okay?
Yeah, very well. So you're saying to be proactive instead of reactive. Very, very,
Exactly.
very important. Yeah. Goodness gracious. So today, what would you like people to know about money? I'm going to leave it wide open for you. What do you want people to know about money today?
Well, I'm going to touch on something I said a little bit earlier on that I didn't phrase it quite like this, but your financial health is not going to get better by accident. It won't just gradually improve. Nothing in life gradually improves. You talked about some, again, before we were recording, you were mentioning some stuff that was going on with your mom's house, and it's an older home, like 200 years old.
Yeah.
That home requires a lot of maintenance.
Oh, yes.
You can't just leave that home and like, I'm gonna come back next week. I'm sure those problems are gonna be fixed. You
No.
have to put energy and intentionality into that system. The system gradually deteriorates over time. That's just we don't need to get into the laws of entropy and physics, but that's just how life is. But you know what? Businesses work the same way. Relationships work the same way. You don't need to actively produce distance between you and your spouse. If you're not working on your relationship, if you're not building closeness, distance just happens. Marriages deteriorate because people stop working at it. They stop putting energy and effort into loving that other person. Finances are a similar way. If you don't put energy and effort into it, it will gradually deteriorate. So, very few people have a plan for running out of money in retirement. Nobody tries to run out of money in retirement, but do you have a plan not to? And so many investors right now don't actually have a plan. They're trying to build their futures without a blueprint. And I'm up here in Anchorage, Alaska. I don't know what it looks like in Asheville. I've never actually been to Asheville. My brother is talking about moving there. He's in Phoenix right now. But
Okay. There's a lot of people moving here, even after all the crazy flooding.
well, I don't know what it's like there, but here in Anchorage, you have to go very far before you look and see like there's a lot of houses here that look like they were built without a blueprint. There was no plan. People were just scrapping together building material and hoping that a house came out of it. It's very haphazard in certain places in Alaska. This is certainly the wild frontier, but we don't want a house built without a blueprint. Why would you want your future built any other way?
Mhm.
And very few people actually have specific long-term objectives for what they want their life to look like, especially financial objectives. And Don, it's like building a house without a blueprint.
Yeah.
We don't really invest. Most people don't strategically invest based on what their long-term financial needs are going to be. They really just collect investments throughout their career. And then a year or two before they retire, they panic and try to throw together a financial house, and it doesn't work. So my encouragement to people would be have a plan for your life. Get clear about where you want to be in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. What do you want to be doing? Who do you want to be spending time with? Then putting some financial goals around that. What is it going to take for that life to be possible? You want to travel, you want to spend more time doing your hobbies, to visit kids and grandkids. Okay, let's attach some financial numbers to that. Then let's create a blueprint that reverse engineer that takes that future and brings it into the moment. So
Mhm.
people can look at what are they doing today? How does that align with where they want to be and who they want to become in the future so they can be proactive building their long-term future rather than reacting to this crazy life around us.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my. Oh, you've given so many words of wisdom and nugget. Let me ask you this, Chad. Sometimes people like to just spend, they use their debit card and they're like, oh, I'll just look at my statement and then I'll have all the facts. Are you somebody that recommends everything you spend that you got to write it, keep a graph or a notebook for it? I mean, to keep it all in order? Everybody's different.
Everybody is different, and a budget is like a calendar or like a diet plan. Okay, so if you think of it, a diet, there's all these books and podcasts and all this stuff about diet. A diet is just eating intentionally. It's planning what you're going to put inside your body so you're not randomly reacting and in the moment making bad choices. It's a long-term strategy. It doesn't mean that you're restricting calories. It doesn't mean that you're eating kale all day. It doesn't have to, but it means that you're acting on a plan instead of reacting. A calendar doesn't tell you what you can't do. A calendar prioritizes the most important things, so those do happen, and then you let the other things fall into place around that. A budget is the same way. A budget tells your money where to go, so you're not left wondering where it all went. And this is very important because you can look at the end of the month and track your spending, but that's still that's tracking where your money went. It's not telling it where to go. So I don't care if it's a spreadsheet. I don't care if it's a piece of software. I don't care if it's an app on your phone. I don't care if it's a napkin that you keep in your study somewhere and you're writing out where you want to spend your money. But you at the beginning of the month, you have to tell your money where to go. Otherwise, you're going to probably end up with more month than money, and that's not a fun place to be in.
More month than money. That Do you have more month than money? I could just see that as the slogan. Oh my.
But but
Yes,
you know what I mean though?
yes, I
Like
do.
you're getting like you're waiting on that next paycheck, but the you're running out of money before that next paycheck gets there. And that comes from not people would think it's a lack of income, but it's usually a lack of intentionality. I've met people, I've got truck drivers and plumbers and welders that have never made $100,000 in a year. Their families never made $100,000 in a year, and they're multimillionaires. I've also met people who make seven figures and live essentially paycheck to paycheck. So a lot of people think that need to increase their income and that'll fix their financial problems. But it's like giving somebody a faster car doesn't make them a better driver. And we've seen this with celebrities and athletes who they make $10 million a year and they still go bankrupt because they never changed their spending habits. We see people who win the lottery and are bankrupt in 3 years. So if you give somebody who doesn't manage money well, you give them more money, again, it's like giving your teenager a Lamborghini. They're still going to wreck it because giving them a nicer car, a faster car, doesn't fix bad driving habits. And we
Yeah.
need to be really mindful with ourselves that if we're not proactive with the money we do have, adding more income, adding more money to that mix is just giving us a bigger shovel to dig a deeper hole.
So in a nutshell, Chad, would you agree with this sentiment? It's like the story, the biblical story, give a man a fish, he eats for the day, teach him how to fish, and then he eats for a lifetime.
Absolutely. Money is simply a tool. And think of it, think of it as like a scalpel.
Hmm.
A scalpel in the hands of a surgeon can save a life. A scalpel in the hands of a madman can take a life. Now, we're probably somewhere in there in between a madman and an expert. But if finances are like a scalpel, if we don't use that scalpel correctly, we can cause a lot of damage. Giving somebody a bigger scalpel isn't going to help them unless we teach them how to use it, to cut carefully around the corners of their life, to cut out what doesn't need to be there so they can save and really emphasize the most important pieces of their life. But that's all money is, Don, is a tool. And people try to replace the tool or try to get more of the tool without learning how to use it. And it's the wrong emphasis. So that's a big part of what we do is help people manage not just their money, but really themselves so they can better utilize the income that they already have, be more intentional with it, and start building a better future with it.
Hmm. Well said, well said. We're down to our last few minutes, so let's talk about the different services that you offer. How can we get a hold of you? Do you have any books out there, website, anything that you would like to relate to the public, to the listeners?
Well, to summarize what we do, and we've talked about a lot of it, but my goal and the goal of Veritas Wealth Management, that's my company,
Mhm.
um, our goal is to make sure people don't run out of money or purpose in retirement. And a lot of people focus on the money equation, but not necessarily the second. And a lot of retirees don't have meaningful purpose. They're retiring from something, but not to something. We
Mm.
want to make sure that your tools, your finances, help you retire to a life of more freedom and abundance, not just give you the opportunity to quit your job. It's a very, very different perspective. A lot of people are running from a career. We want people chasing financial independence. So that's what we do. We help people to make sure they don't run out of money or purpose in retirement. And if folks want to find out how to do that, want to be more intentional, want to have real meaningful strategic goals for their financial future, they can find us at veritasalaska.com. And don't worry about the Alaska and the URL. We were founded up here. We work with folks all over the United States. Veritasalaska.com, veritas.alaska on Instagram. And I do have a book called Forging Financial Freedom, and it's really the mindsets of building wealth. So, Forging Financial Freedom, they can find that on Amazon.
Okay, very good. And Chad Hufford, Hufford. He's in Anchorage, Alaska. Reach out to him. Are you on LinkedIn?
Yes. Yep. If you just type, there's not many Chad Huffords out there. If you put Chad Hufford Alaska or Chad Hufford Veritas, and Veritas is Veritas, I'll pop right up.
Really appreciate this timely subject, Chad, because this is something, I think more so right now than it's been in years. People are worried. They're worried about, will I have enough money to buy groceries? Will I have enough money to go to school, pay off school, to retire? Such a timely subject. Thank you for your sage, wise advice all the way from Anchorage, Alaska.
My pleasure, Don. Thanks for having me.
Signing off, I'm Dawn Westmoreland. I almost said I'm coming from Alaska. I was just in Alaska, but it's been a while coming from Asheville, North Carolina, wanting to be in Alaska because it's such a lovely place. Coming from the voice of Asheville, stay empowered. We'll see you next time.